They say the hardest goodbye is the one that never happens, when someone drifts away piece by piece and you're still standing there watching. For Mary Lawson, 72 years old and still stubbornly independent, the slow forgetting began one winter morning in a little town outside Columbus, Ohio. She'd woken early, made her tea, and written her name on a yellow sticky note. She placed it on the refrigerator door, not because she loved lists, but because, lately, names were the first to slip away. Her son, David, stopped by every Sunday. He was 43, divorced, carrying years of quiet guilt. There were dark rings under his eyes, the kind you get from working too much and sleeping too little, with memories that won't leave you alone. He'd been a good boy once, but addiction, then debt, had made strangers of them for nearly a decade. When he finally came back, clean, humbled, Mary opened her door as if he'd only been gone a day. "You're late," she said, smiling faintly. "Dinner's cold, but forgiveness is warm." Now, 2 years later, he sat beside her kitchen window, watching her stir sugar into her tea, slowly, precisely, like someone measuring time itself. "Mom," he said softly, "you've been forgetting to turn off the stove again." She laughed, brushing him off. "I'm old, not helpless." But he saw the nervous flicker in her eyes, the brief blank space where recognition should have been. That night, she called him Mark. He didn't correct her. Instead, he went home and pulled out the old leather journal she'd given him when he was 15. Inside were short entries, prayers, recipes, quotes, and memories she'd written for him when he was lost in the world. On the very first page, her handwriting read, "For my son David Lawson, so you'll never forget who you are, even if I one day forget who I am." He stared at those words for a long time. Then he whispered, "I won't let you disappear, Mom." Over the next months, the decline deepened. Some days, Mary was sharp, telling stories about the hospital she'd worked in, scolding David for eating too much pie. Other days, she wandered through the house calling for her late husband Tom, certain he'd just gone to the store. Their neighbor, Mrs. Whittemore, began checking in daily. "She's forgetting breakfast," she told David one morning. "Yesterday, she put the remote in the freezer." David tried to smile, but his eyes betrayed him. He said, "She used to remember everything, every appointment, every birthday, even the name of my first dog." Mrs. Whittemore sighed. "That's the cruelest part, isn't it? The mind goes before the heart does." Later that week, David found Mary sitting in her living room armchair, staring at an old photo, him as a baby in her arms. She traced the image with her trembling finger. She murmured, "He had your eyes." David whispered, "Mom, that's me." She looked up slowly, confusion soft in her gaze. "Is it?" He smiled through tears. "Yeah, it's me." She nodded faintly. "You are a beautiful baby." That night, David recorded her voice on his phone. He asked her to tell stories about his childhood, about his father. Some she remembered, others she invented new endings for. He didn't care. He just wanted her voice preserved somewhere time couldn't reach. Before leaving, he kissed her forehead. "I'll see you tomorrow." She smiled, looking suddenly clear-eyed. "Tomorrow," she said, "but promise me you'll bring the little boy from the picture. I liked him." Outside, the wind moved through the maple trees, carrying the last leaves of autumn down the empty street. Inside, the clock ticked, steady, patient, keeping time for the memories slowly slipping away. Winter came quietly to Maple Hollow, a town that looked like it was made to remember. But in the Lawson house, memory was something that faded with every sunrise.
Mary no longer drove. The car keys stayed in a ceramic bowl by the door, a reminder of a freedom she didn't trust herself with anymore. David had moved back in. He said it was temporary, just until she got better. But they both knew better. Alzheimer's wasn't something you healed from. It was something you endured. He cooked for her, helped her bathe, labeled drawers and cupboards with sticky notes, sugar, tea, love, little reminders taped to a life slipping out of focus. One morning, he found her sitting at the table, the old leather journal open before her. She was reading a page aloud, slowly, like a prayer. David's first day of school. He cried because I wasn't allowed to stay. I told him bravery isn't about not being scared, it's about doing it anyway. She looked up, smiling faintly. Do you remember that? David swallowed hard. I do, Mom. Good, she said softly, because I don't. That afternoon, the nurse from the memory clinic visited. Her name was Carla. Kind, patient, with eyes that had seen too many slow goodbyes. She ran gentle tests, asked questions, and took notes. Afterward, she pulled David aside. She's in stage 3 now, Carla said quietly. There'll be more confusion, more fear. Try to keep her surrounded by familiar things. Photographs, music, scents. Those last the longest. David nodded, holding his breath. Will she remember me? Carla hesitated. Some days, others, she might just remember that she loves you, even if she forgets why. That night, David went through the attic, pulling out boxes of photo albums and old cassette tapes. He found one labeled in Mary's handwriting, David, 1987, Christmas morning. He played it on the dusty tape deck. Static filled the air. Then her voice, younger, full of laughter. David, don't open that yet. Let me get the camera. Then a boy's voice, high, excited, pure. Mom, it's the train set. You remembered. He sat in the dark, tears falling freely. She had always remembered. She had always been the anchor, even when he drifted too far to see her. In the weeks that followed, Mary began to lose track of time entirely. Days bled into nights. Sometimes she mistook David for her late husband, other times for a kind stranger who helped around the house. But every evening, before bed, she opened her journal and wrote something, though the sentences grew shorter, shakier, like thoughts dissolving halfway to the page. One entry read simply, "A man lives here. He says he's my son. I think I love him." One morning, she didn't recognize her own room. She wandered outside, barefoot, wearing her robe, calling for someone named Tom. David found her standing by the mailbox, shivering. "Mom," he said, wrapping his jacket around her. "Dad's been gone a long time." She looked up at him, frightened. "Then why does he keep calling my name at night?" He froze. "What do you mean?" She smiled sadly. "He says it's not my time yet, that I have to stay for you." He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Come on, Mom," he whispered. "Let's go home." That evening, as he tucked her into bed, she looked at him with tired eyes. "David," she said softly, "you've been such a good nurse." He laughed through tears. "I'm not your nurse, Mom." She smiled dreamily. "No? Then what are you?" He took her hand and whispered, "I'm the little boy who cried on his first day of school." She frowned slightly, searching the corners of her fading mind, then nodded as if she almost remembered. "He was a sweet boy," she said. "I hope he grew up kind." "He did," he whispered, "because of you." That night, David sat at the kitchen table, reading her journal entries by the glow of a single lamp. The final one, written in shaky handwriting, said, "If tomorrow I forget his name, tell him I remember his heart." He closed the journal gently as the snow fell outside and the world grew very still.
Spring arrived late that year. The cherry trees outside the Lawson house bloomed unevenly, as if even nature wasn't sure what season it was anymore. Mary spent her mornings staring out the window, humming songs no one else remembered. Some days she smiled at David and called him Tom. Other days she called him Sir. One Sunday, David found her sitting in the living room, dressed in her old nurse's uniform. The fabric was yellowed, the buttons loose, but she had pinned her name tag carefully to the collar. "Big day?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I'm waiting for my boy to come home. He's late for supper." David froze. "Your boy?" She smiled at the photograph on the mantel, a 6-year-old in overalls, holding a wooden train. "Yes," she whispered, "my David." He felt the breath catch in his throat. "Mom, I'm right here." Mary looked at him, really looked at him, and for one moment, recognition flickered like a match in the dark. Then it was gone. That evening, she grew restless, pacing the hallway. "I have to find him. He'll be scared." David followed her, trying not to cry. "Mom, please, sit down. He's safe." "You don't understand," she snapped. "I promised him I'd never leave." Her voice cracked. "Mothers don't forget promises." David took her trembling hands. "Then don't. Just sit with me, okay?" She stared at him, confusion softening to something gentler. "You're kind," she murmured. "You remind me of him." He managed a broken smile. "People say we have the same eyes." That night, she wandered again, barefoot across the porch, calling for the boy who no longer existed in her mind. The neighbor saw her and phoned David. He ran outside, heart pounding. "Mom, it's freezing. Come inside." She turned toward his voice, blinking against the porch light. "Who are you?" she whispered. He stopped. "It's me," he said softly. "David." Her brow furrowed. The name meant nothing now, just a sound that floated in the cold night air. He guided her inside, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. She looked around the kitchen like a stranger in someone else's home. "Do I live here?" he asked. "Yes," he said quietly. "We both do." "You're very good to me. I wish my son had been like you." David couldn't speak. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "He wishes that too." Over the next few weeks, she declined quickly. The doctor said her body was tired, her heart slower than her memories. One afternoon, David heard her murmuring from her room. He peeked in. She was writing in her journal again, hand shaking so badly that the words slanted across the page. He sat beside her. "Need help?" She smiled faintly. "Just finishing a letter. For my boy." He swallowed hard. "Can I hear it?" She nodded and read, voice thin but steady. "My darling David, if I forget you, please remember, every heartbeat I ever had was because of you." She looked up, confused. "Isn't that beautiful? I don't know where I heard it."
David whispered, "You wrote it, Mom." That night, she fell asleep holding his hand. Her breathing slowed with the rhythm of a lullaby only she could hear. When morning came, the house was silent. On the bedside table lay the journal, open, a final line written in trembling script. He came home. David closed it gently, sunlight spilling across her face, peaceful, free. He whispered her name once more, just to fill the quiet. Mary. And though she didn't answer, the walls seemed to remember for her.